Hi there, I'm Ron from Finding Discipleship. The purpose of this video that I'm about to show is fourfold. First of all, to challenge the claims that Peter Joseph made in part 1 of his Zeitgeist video, The Greatest Story Ever Sold, which is based on D.M. Murdoch's book, The Christ Conspiracy, The Greatest Story Ever Sold. By the way, Akara S. is the pen name of D.M. Murdoch, who holds the general belief that religions are based on earlier myths. She attempts to show that Christianity is just modern-day Roman mythology. Secondly, to expose the film's lies and half-truths pulled from D.M. Murdoch's book. Thirdly, to respond to each major claim or theme with historical evidence and eyewitness accounts, truths the viewer can use to stand firm in their faith despite Peter's deceptions. Finally, to encourage viewers in their faith and convince them that just because Peter was deceptive in this first part, they should be very suspicious of anything stated in the other two parts of the three-part, 2-hour-long video presentation. In the overall theme of this video, Peter and therefore Murdoch attempt to convince viewers that Jesus, his disciples, and even Moses didn't really exist. For instance, Peter calls Jesus an astrotheological literary hybrid and states that the story of Moses was plagiarized from the story of Sargon. In my challenge to this, Peter completely disregards historical evidence and eyewitness accounts when making the claims in his video. Additionally, Peter leads the viewer to believe that because different individuals or symbols share common traits, then they must be identical. For instance, he claims that the fact that the Jews blow the ram's horns to this day lends credibility to the astrological age of Aries, and that the mention of fish in Jesus' stories somehow proves that these are truly only stories to show that we're in the age of Pisces. There are many more abuses like this. Worse yet, some claims are completely untrue and unsupportable. The most blatant of these can be seen in Peter's comparison of Horus to Jesus, the use of the number 12 in the Bible, and misquotation of Scripture. And we'll certainly go through those things in greater detail over the next half hour. It doesn't matter that Peter is quoting Murdoch. He's still responsible for his deceptions. Unfortunately, most Christians are weak in faith due to a lack of solid biblical or historical foundation, and therefore are easily misled into believing these claims are true. Jesus did say that this would happen in the last days. So who's my audience? Who should be seeing this? Who is the rebuttal for? Certainly not those who've taken the word of Murdoch or Joseph and are closed-minded, unwilling to believe they've been misled. Instead, I'm addressing those who want the truth and aren't looking for an excuse to dismiss God, Christ, and their guidelines. Be diligent and search for the complete truth. Don't take anyone's word alone for any of this, Christianity or Murdoch's writings. Please, please, please don't take what you learn from the Zeitgeist video at face value. Challenge everything. In the truth-finding process, you'll learn that Murdoch and Joseph have misled and been careless in their presentation, and they will be held accountable, make no mistake. So, before you get into the video that I'm about to present, I'd like to give you some things to consider, some points to keep in mind as you watch the Zeitgeist video. If you haven't seen it already, part 1, you need to before you continue, and then certainly watch the rest of this rebuttal. Here are some points, as I mentioned. First of all, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel, and other prophets wrote prophecies concerning Jesus as much as 700 years before his birth. Their writings include many details about wars, battles, kings, and dates that corroborate secular history and archaeology. This should lend confidence to their existence and the prophecy of Jesus that were later fulfilled as recorded by eyewitnesses. The prophets and others foretelling of the Messiah's first coming were part of a very specific and purposeful lineage. This is cross-referenced and corroborated continually throughout Scripture and in history. This would be very difficult to make up. The prophecies, although written by different people and separated by hundreds of years, complement and don't contradict each other. Disciples and apostles of the New Testament era did exist. Their writings refer to and confirm the existence of each other. If nothing else, understand this. John wrote about the Messiah, Jesus, his teachings, his life, his death, his resurrection, and of the vision of his return as an eyewitness. One of John's disciples, Polycarp, confirms these things as he passes the information to others like one of his disciples, Irenaeus, and he wrote about these things, and so forth. Paul and the early church fathers on occasion compared the things of Jesus to pagan gods of others, but in context you'll see it was done to provide a common frame of reference with which to start their witness from, not to say that they believed Jesus was only a myth, as Peter claims. The disciples and many others gave their lives because they were unwilling to say anything other than the truth about Jesus. He is the Messiah who died and was raised and who will come again. Do you really believe that they would die to perpetuate a myth or a story? Peter and therefore Murdoch's writings contain a lot of stuff that has no basis or proof. Check it out for yourself. Again, you'll find no support for most of the similarities they claim exist between mythological characters and Jesus. Ancient scriptures tell us that God put stars and constellations in the heavens as signs, which have often heralded and will herald earthly events. These signs support the events. They don't replace them or prove that only the astrological signs existed. Peter and Murdoch claim that the Jewish and Christian stories confirm the presence of personified astrological ages, i.e. Pisces. Again, they say that the story of Jesus feeding the multitudes of fish or relating to fishermen just represents that astrological age of Pisces, the fish. Immediately matching like terms and going no further is probably as uneducated and unscientific an action as I've ever seen. Jesus used fish when teaching those who fished for a living. He also used farming when teaching those who farmed for a living, and so forth. However, I don't see Peter making an astrological connection between the farming parables and some kind of astrological twin. The next point is very, very important, and one that might shock some people, but Jesus was not born on December 25th. And I'll repeat that to make sure there's no misunderstanding. He was not born on December 25th. The date isn't scriptural or historical, but one implemented most likely by Constantine, who was a worshipper of Mithra, the Roman sun god. Mithra's birthday, as with most of the deities that came out of ancient Babylon, was December 25th, the winter solstice. None of Peter or Murdoch's mythological female characters had a virgin birth as Mary did. They may have been miracle births in the myths, but not virgin births. The sun gods and their similarities originated in ancient Babylon. They all began with Nimrod, his mother Semiramis, and their offspring Tammuz. The dispersion of the peoples of ancient Babylon by God permitted the spreading of the flood account and deities spawned by Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, and of their worship. Religion itself does cause problems in slavery, as noted by Peter at the end of his presentation, but following Jesus has nothing to do with religion. And while Jesus and the following of him are not built on a Roman story, as Peter claims, the Roman Catholic religion is. Unfortunately, some, like Joseph and Murdoch, recognize the pagan symbols and worship and bloodshed intertwined with Catholicism and its history, and therefore automatically assume that all of Christianity must be based on pagan stories. Shortly we'll go into each point one by one, but I'd like to let you know that you can find a PDF of the script that I've written to create this video rebuttal at www.findingrevelation.com/finding discipleship /PDF, all capitals, gallery.htm. And I'll try to flash that as well up on the screen for you. Alright, now let's look at each major theme of Peter's video and explore the truth about his claims.